The mysterious arrival. The Vorshan Empire was the strongest force in the galaxy. Their warships were feared across countless star systems, and their technology was far ahead of anything humanity had ever created. For centuries, they had expanded their rule, crushing weaker species and absorbing their knowledge. But on this day, something impossible happened. Deep inside Vorshan space, a strange energy signature appeared out of nowhere. It was not a ship traveling through normal space. It was not a fleet entering through a known wormhole. It was something new, something that should not exist. At first, the Vorshan High Command thought it was a sensor error. Their systems had never detected anything like it before. The reading showed a single warship, but its energy levels were off the scale. Even their largest dreadnoughts did not produce such power. Admiral Xalroth, the commander of the Vorshan Imperial Fleet, frowned as he stared at the holographic display. The warship had not entered their space in a normal way. It had simply appeared, as if from thin air. "Run a deep scan," Xalroth ordered. The scanners focused on the warship. The results made the room go silent. The ship was human-made. Xalroth's claws tightened against the armrest of his command chair. Humans were a young race in the galaxy, barely 200 years into space exploration. Their warships were primitive compared to Vorshan technology. They had no empire, no powerful fleets, and no advanced weapons. So how could a single human warship appear in the heart of Vorshan space, carrying technology that even the Vorshan did not understand? "This is impossible," one of the officers whispered. Xalroth narrowed his glowing red eyes. Impossible or not, the ship was there. And if it was human-made, that meant the humans had a secret that could threaten the Vorshan Empire. "Send a warning to the fleet," Xalroth commanded. "No one approaches the ship. We will observe from a distance. A warship unlike any other." The mysterious warship did not move. It simply floated in space, silent and unmoving, like a ghost. Its design was unlike any human warship ever recorded. It had a smooth, almost liquid-like hull, black as the void itself. Strange patterns glowed faintly along its surface, shifting and changing as if the ship were alive. There were no visible weapons, yet the energy readings suggested it had enough firepower to wipe out an entire fleet. The Vorshan scientists tried to hack into its systems, but every attempt failed instantly. The ship was sealed, completely unreadable by any known technology. Then, without warning, a message appeared on every screen across the Vorshan Empire. It was a simple text, just a few words. "Leave Earth alone. You have been warned." Panic spread like wildfire. This was not just an unknown warship. It was a threat, a direct challenge to the Vorshan Empire. Admiral Xalroth clenched his fists. He had conquered entire civilizations, crushed rebellions, and fought countless battles. But never before had he faced an enemy he did not understand. And he hated it. "The humans think they can threaten us," Xalroth growled. "Prepare the fleet. If they refuse to explain themselves, we will make them talk." The first mistake. The Vorshan gathered a fleet of 50 warships and moved toward the mysterious vessel. Fighters surrounded it, scanning its every detail, searching for weak points. Xalroth himself led the attack from the bridge of his flagship, a massive battlecruiser named Dominion's Wrath. As they approached, he sent a direct transmission. "Unknown human warship, identify yourself. Surrender your technology, or we will destroy you." For several minutes, there was no response. The silence was unbearable. Then the warship moved. It did not turn. It did not accelerate like normal ships. It simply shifted, as if reality itself had bent around it. A deep, echoing sound vibrated through every Vorshan ship. Their shields flickered. Their weapons systems glitched. And then something impossible happened. One by one, the entire Vorshan fleet vanished, erased from existence in the blink of an eye. Only Admiral Xalroth's flagship remained, floating in the empty void where his armada had once been. His claws trembled as he stared at the screens. His warriors, his ships, gone. No explosions, no debris, no escape pods, just nothing. For the first time in his life, Admiral Xal'Roth felt fear. The warship that should not exist had just wiped out his entire fleet without firing a single shot, and now it was turning to face him. The deadly warning. Admiral Xal'Roth's breathing was heavy. His hands gripped the armrests of his command chair, claws digging into the metal. The silence on the bridge was deafening. His entire fleet was gone. No distress calls, no wreckage, no sign that they had ever existed. And now, the impossible warship had turned to face him. The ship remained motionless, its dark hull absorbing all light, making it look like a shadow cut into space itself. Xal'Roth swallowed his fear and forced himself to think. What just happened? No known weapon in the galaxy could erase ships from existence like that. Shields could be broken, hulls could be shattered. But this was something else entirely. One thing was clear, this ship was not normal human technology. "Sir, what are your orders?" One of his officers finally spoke, voice trembling. Xal'Roth took a deep breath. He was not a coward. He was Vorshan. He had conquered planets, crushed rebellions, and stood against impossible odds before. He would not run. "Send a distress signal," he ordered. "We need reinforcements." The officer hesitated. "Sir, the communication systems are not responding." Xal'Roth's blood ran cold. "The warship speaks." Before the admiral could react, a voice echoed through the bridge. It wasn't transmitted through the ship's speakers. It appeared directly inside their minds. Deep, resonant, and in perfect Vorshan dialect. "Your fleet is gone. You were warned." Every crew member froze. Some gasped in terror. Others clutched their heads as if trying to block out the voice. Xal'Roth's jaw clenched. He hated being powerless. "You dare challenge the Vorshan Empire?" He snarled, forcing his voice to remain strong. "Who are you?" For a moment, there was silence. Then the voice returned. "We are the future." The screens on the bridge flickered. A single message appeared, written in the human language, but automatically translated into Vorshan text. "Leave the Earth alone. You gave been warned." Xal'Roth's mind raced. This ship, this thing, was protecting humanity. But why? What had the humans created? Or worse, what had found them? The Empire's next move. The warship did not attack. It simply floated there, waiting. Xal'Roth had no choice. He had to escape and warn the Vorshan High Command. "Turn the ship around," he ordered. "Get us out of here. Now." The crew scrambled to obey. The Dominion's wrath turned sharply, its engines roaring to full power. For a brief moment, Xal'Roth feared the warship would stop him, but it did not. It let him go. Why? As his battlecruiser sped away, the mysterious warship vanished, just like it had appeared. Xal'Roth exhaled. He had survived. But his empire was in danger. The warning reaches the Empire. The moment Dominion's wrath returned to Vorshan space, Xal'Roth demanded an audience with the Emperor himself. In the Grand War Chamber, the highest-ranking Vorshan generals and leaders gathered. The Emperor, a towering figure with scales like black steel, listened as Xal'Roth recounted the event. When he finished, there was silence. Then the Emperor laughed. "You expect me to believe," the Emperor's voice rumbled, "that a single human warship erased an entire fleet?" Xal'Roth's fists tightened. "I saw it with my own eyes, my lord. The ship was beyond anything we know. It gave a warning. Leave Earth alone." One of the generals sneered. "Humans are weak. A single warship changes nothing. If they believe they can challenge the Vorshan Empire, we will burn their world to ash." Xal'Roth shook his head. They did not understand. "This is not a normal warship," he said. "It should not exist. It is beyond our science, And it did not just destroy our fleet, it erased them. The room grew tense. Zalroth continued, "We must be careful. We must learn what this ship is, where it came from, and how the humans acquired it. If we attack Earth without knowing the truth, we could be walking into our own destruction." The Emperor was silent for a long time. Then he spoke. "Very well. We will not strike immediately." Zalroth sighed in relief, until the Emperor's next words made his blood freeze. "But we will take this warship, and if the humans refuse to surrender it, we will destroy them all." A shadow watches. Far away, hidden deep in the void of space, the mysterious warship remained silent, observing. It had done what it was programmed to do, send the warning. But it knew they would not listen. The Vorshan would come. The war would happen. And the warship would be ready. Because it had seen the future. Because it had come from the future. And because it knew what was coming next. Something far worse than the Vorshan Empire. The unstoppable force. The Vorshan Empire did not hesitate. The Emperor's orders were clear. Capture the warship at any cost. Within days, a fleet of 50 warships was mobilized. Each vessel was a masterpiece of Vorshan engineering, equipped with the deadliest weapons in the galaxy. No civilization had ever stood against a Vorshan invasion and survived. Their target, the mysterious warship. But they didn't know where it had gone. The only clue was the last message it had sent. "Leave Earth alone. UHAVBEN warned." The Emperor was growing impatient. "Find it," he snarled. "If the humans refuse to hand it over, we will tear their planet apart until we uncover its secrets." Zalroth, the only Vorshan admiral to have encountered the ship, wasn't so sure. He stood in the war room, surrounded by generals who were eager for battle. "This is a mistake," he said. "That ship, it is not normal. It erased my fleet without effort. If we provoke it..." The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "Are you afraid, Admiral?" Zalroth clenched his jaw. He was not a coward, but he was not a fool either. Before he could respond, a transmission interrupted their meeting. "Emergency distress call from the Vorik Nebula." The room fell silent. That was where their fleet had been searching for the warship. And now they were sending a distress call. "The warship strikes." The Emperor ordered the transmission to be played. A shaky, terrified voice filled the chamber. "This is Captain Revik. We found the human warship. It's impossible. We fired everything. Everything. And it's still here." Static, screams, explosions. Then another voice cut through the chaos. "Calm, cold, human. You were warned." The transmission ended. Zalroth felt a chill run down his spine. The room was silent. Even the Emperor, who had been so confident before, seemed troubled. Then another officer spoke, his voice shaking. "Sir, the entire fleet is gone. Every ship we sent to the Vorik Nebula has been erased." The general stared in horror. The unstoppable Vorshan war machine had finally met something it could not defeat. The galaxy watches in fear. The destruction of the Vorshan fleet sent shockwaves across the galaxy. News spread fast. The great warrior empire had lost, not in battle, but in one-sided annihilation. For the first time in history, the Vorshan were afraid. Other alien empires took notice. The Exilari Dominion, the Jorvani Alliance, even the mysterious Farkas Hive, all watched from the shadows. If the Vorshan Empire fell, what would happen next? And more importantly, who really controlled the warship? Because by now, everyone knew. The humans didn't build it. Something else did. And if the warship was protecting Earth, what was it protecting Earth from? A warning from the future. Deep in the void of space, the warship remained silent. Its mission was not complete. The Vorshan were only the beginning. The real enemy had not yet arrived. But it would. And when it did, even the warship might not be enough. Secrets of the warship. The Vorshan Empire was in shock. 50 of their strongest warships had been erased like they never existed. No wreckage, no escape pods, nothing. For the first time in their history, the Vorshan stopped their advance. They hesitated, and that terrified the entire galaxy. But the biggest question remained. What is this warship? Where did it come from? And most importantly, why is it here? The human scientist's theory. On Earth, in a hidden research facility beneath the mountains, Dr. Adrian Wells stared at the data on his screen. His hands were shaking. He had spent his entire career studying human military technology, but nothing like this had ever been built. This warship, Erebus, was beyond anything Earth's greatest minds could even dream of. No known materials, no conventional engines, no crew, and yet it acted with purpose. Then, a chilling realization hit him. What if humans didn't create this warship? What if it was sent back to them? A message from the warship. As Dr. Wells continued his research, a message appeared on his screen. No one had sent it. It came from nowhere. It contained only 4 words. The enemy is coming. Wells's heart pounded. Before he could react, another message appeared. We are your last chance. For a long moment, he just sat there, unable to breathe. Then the alarms in the facility blared. Something was happening. The truth is revealed. At the same time, deep in the void of space, the warship moved. It was no longer hiding. It was preparing. A secret transmission was sent, not to the Vorshan, not to the Galactic Council, but directly to Earth's military leaders. Inside the transmission was classified information. The data was shocking. Erebus was not a human creation. It was from the future. A future where humanity no longer existed. A future where an unknown force had wiped out Earth, along with every other race in the galaxy. Erebus had been sent back to prevent that future from happening. But time was running out. The real enemy approaches. On the outskirts of the galaxy, in the darkest regions of space, something moved. Silent, unseen, waiting. It had watched the Vorshan fail. It had watched the warship reveal itself. And now, it was ready to strike. A massive black void spread through the system. A fleet unlike anything the galaxy had ever known. Not biological, not mechanical. Something else. Something that should not exist. And at the center of the approaching fleet, a single word pulsed in an unknown language. A word that sent a terrifying message across space. Consume. Earth's final hope. Humanity now faced an impossible truth. The Vorshan were never the real enemy. The true threat was something older, something unstoppable, and it was coming for everyone. The warship, Erebus, had been sent to change fate, to give humanity and the galaxy one last chance. But was it enough? And who had built Erebus in the first place? The answer to that question could change everything. Because if Erebus was a weapon created to save humanity, then what had destroyed them in the original timeline? The hidden enemy. The galaxy had been watching the warship Erebus in fear. Now, the warship was watching something else. Something worse. Something that even Erebus feared. The true enemy had arrived. The first signs of invasion. On the outskirts of the galaxy, in a forgotten sector where no empire dared to travel, the nightmares began. Entire planets went silent. No distress signals. No survivors. No wreckage. Just emptiness. Space stations stopped transmitting. Fleets vanished without a trace. Trade routes became graveyards of drifting ships, lifeless, untouched. It was as if the universe itself had started consuming everything in its path, and no one knew why. Until the first recording was found. A message from the void. A single probe, launched by an independent trade vessel, had managed to escape. When scientists recovered it, the data inside made their blood run cold. The footage was grainy, static-filled, but the horror was clear. A massive black fleet, ships that looked more like shadows than metal. No visible weapons, no thrusters, moving like ghosts through space. Then, something even worse. The Vorshan fleet stationed at the colony tried to fight back. They launched torpedoes, fired plasma cannons, activated shields. It didn't matter. The enemy ships never took damage. The energy blasts vanished on impact. The missiles stopped moving mid-space and simply drifted away. And then the fleet was erased. One by one, the warships blinked out of existence. No explosions, no wreckage, just gone. Then, for the last 5 seconds of the recording, a single transmission was received. Consume. The message repeated in an unknown language. Then the probe shut down. The warship's response. On Earth, Dr. Adrian Wells sat before a classified military council. His hands were shaking as he played the footage for them. When it ended, no one spoke. Then, the warship Erebus transmitted a new message. This time, it was longer. This time, it revealed the truth. They are not invaders. They are not an army. They are entropy itself, a force that exists only to consume. They do not conquer. They erase. The warship paused. Then, the final line sent chills through the room. They are the reason I was created. The council leaned forward. One general spoke. You were created by humanity. The response came instantly. No. Silence. Then, a final transmission. I was created by the last survivors of the future, the ones who watched everything end. I was sent back to prevent their fate from happening again, to prepare humanity for the final war. Dr. Wells swallowed hard. The warship wasn't just here to fight. It was here because this was humanity's last chance to survive. The Vorshan's desperation. Meanwhile, in the Vorshan Empire, chaos erupted. Their strongest colonies had gone dark. Their fleets were missing. For the first time in history, the Vorshan Emperor issued an emergency order. We must negotiate with the humans. Admiral Xalroth, once a proud warrior, now stood before the council pleading for survival. We thought the warship was our enemy, he said, but it is the only reason we still exist. The Vorshan had spent centuries believing they were the strongest race in the galaxy. Now, they realized something horrifying. They were just another target. And the only way to survive was to stand with humanity. A war like no other. The galaxy was at a crossroads. Erebus had given its warning. The hidden enemy had begun its attack. And now, every species had one choice to make. Unite with humanity, or be erased, because the enemy would not stop. They would not surrender. And if humanity lost this war, there would be nothing left. The coming storm. The galaxy stood on the brink of annihilation. The hidden enemy had revealed itself. Entire fleets had vanished. Planets had gone dark. And now, every species, humans, Vorshan, Sulari, Jorvani, Varkishive, and more, faced a terrible truth. They were not fighting for victory. They were fighting to exist. The alliance of the desperate. For the first time in history, ancient enemies set aside their wars. The Vorshan, once feared conquerors, bowed before the Galactic Council. Admiral Xalroth stood in the center of the Grand Chamber, facing representatives from every major power. His voice was grim. We spent centuries fighting each other for control, he said. Now, if we do not stand together, there will be nothing left to control. The human ambassador, General Isaac Reeve, nodded. The enemy isn't just coming, he said. They are already here. A hologram flickered to life, displaying live footage from the outer colonies. Dozens of black, shadow-like ships drifted toward inhabited worlds. Then, without firing a single shot, the planets began to break apart. Not explode, not burn, just fade into nothingness. The room was silent. The message was clear. If they did not act, they would all disappear. The final stand begins. The Galactic Council issued a command that had never been spoken before. Activate every fleet. Deploy every soldier. All forces will rally at Earth. If humanity fell, the galaxy would follow. The last battle would be fought on human soil. But deep in space, in the dark void between stars, the enemy was already moving. Erebus prepares for war. Inside the warship Erebus, systems began activating. It had seen this battle before. It had lived this war in another timeline. And in that future, humanity had lost. Now, it would change the outcome. Its weapons powered up, technology centuries beyond anything the galaxy understood. It sent a message to Earth's military leaders. I will lead the first strike. Follow my path. Do not hesitate. There will be no second chances. No one questioned it. They had seen what Erebus could do. They had no choice but to trust it. Because if Erebus failed, nothing would be left to save. The enemy arrives. In the far reaches of the Sol system, where humanity's last defenses were stationed, the Black Fleet appeared. At first, it looked like a shadow stretching across space. Then the sensors detected them, thousands of ships. No markings, no life signs, just pure, unstoppable destruction. The alarms blared. Earth's fleet, assembled from every major galactic power, moved into formation. Erebus took the lead. Then, the first transmission came from the enemy. It was not a voice. It was one word, sent directly into the minds of every living being in the system. Consume. And with that, the final war began. The final stand. The Black Fleet descended upon Earth. A vast, endless wave of ships that looked more like living shadows than metal. Their forms twisted, shifting like liquid, moving in ways that defied logic. No thrusters, no weapons, no heat signatures. And yet, they consumed everything in their path. The galaxy's last alliance stood ready. Human warships, Vorshan dreadnoughts, Jorvani battle carriers, Silari strike cruisers. All species had united, their fleets forming a defensive wall around Earth. This was it, the final battle. The battle begins. The first wave of enemy ships rushed forward like a tidal wave. Human commanders barked orders. Open fire. Thousands of warships unleashed everything they had: plasma cannons, railguns, fusion torpedoes. A storm of firepower filled the void. But the enemy fleet did not break. The moment the weapons struck, the energy vanished. Torpedoes stopped moving. Lasers flickered out. Railgun slugs dissolved into dust. The same terrifying force that had erased entire fleets was now aimed at Earth. Panic spread through the Allied forces. Nothing's working. A Xilari captain screamed. A Vorshan admiral roared. Keep firing. We have to slow them down. It didn't matter. The enemy was unstoppable. Erebus unleashes its power. Then Erebus moved. The warship had remained still, watching, waiting. Now it surged forward, breaking through the Allied fleet like a spear. It did not fire traditional weapons. Instead, the space around it bent. The enemy ships closest to Erebus froze in place, then collapsed into themselves, as if they had never existed. The void itself seemed to shatter as Erebus activated its true power. A massive pulse spread outward, a ripple through time and space, and for the first time in history, the enemy ships reacted. They slowed. They hesitated. They feared Erebus, a shocking revelation. Inside the warship, a transmission appeared on human military screens. A final message from Erebus. This is your only chance. Then, the truth was revealed. The enemy was not an alien race. The enemy was the natural end of all things, a force that had always existed, an entity that erased civilizations when they grew too advanced, a cycle repeated across billions of years. Humanity was never meant to survive. Erebus had been sent from the future because it had seen this happen before. And this time, it would break the cycle, but only if humanity made one final stand. The final decision. Erebus began to glow. Its core pulsed, energy building beyond anything the Allied fleets had seen before. Admiral Xalroth, watching from his command ship, realized what was happening. It's going to sacrifice itself. Erebus had one last weapon, something it had never used before. A weapon that could erase the enemy from existence. But there was a cost. If Erebus used it, it would be destroyed, and no one knew if it would be enough. The final attack. The enemy fleet recovered. It began its final push toward Earth. Every remaining warship in the Alliance charged forward, knowing this was their last battle. Then, Erebus fired. A shockwave rippled through space. The void collapsed inward. The enemy ships froze, then shattered like glass. One by one, they disappeared. The fleet that had consumed entire galaxies was gone. And then, Erebus itself faded away. A final transmission echoed across the void. The cycle is broken. The future is yours. Then, silence. The aftermath. The battle was over. The enemy was gone. Erebus had saved them all. But the warship that had come from the future, the impossible machine that defied all logic, was lost. For a moment, the galaxy was silent. Then, one by one, the Allied warships began broadcasting a single message across every frequency. We remember Erebus. A monument was built, orbiting Earth, a tribute to the warship that shouldn't have existed, yet saved everything. Humanity had won. The galaxy had survived, and for the first time in history, the future was truly unknown. The end.